today's proceedings of this very special occasion and keep in line with our rich culture, we cordially invite the following dignitaries to light the flags of the oil lamp.
Starting off with Fusion 2020 Chairperson Leo Lucky Shah Pereira, Chief Guest of the occasion, multiple Council Chairman Lion Sri Lanka Fernando PMJF, multiple District President Leo Lion Dilshan Pires,
along with Group CEO of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, Ms. Kasturi Chellaraja Wilson, President of the Bar Association, President Council, Mr. Salia Pires, past Council Chairperson, Lion Mahesh Pasquale, PMJF, MAF, endorsed candidate for the Office of International Director, Lions Clubs International, Chairman and Managing Director at 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 Engineering Private Limited,
Mr. Dhananath Fernando, Chief Operations Officer and Founder of Advocata Institute, Moderator for the event, Leo Lion 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, Senior Team Lead, People Operations at Cisco Labs, District Governor 306A1, Lion Umashankar Bhagitharan, District Governor 306A2, Lion Buddhika Ratnayaka PMJF, MAF, District Governor 306C1, Deshamanya Lion Amal Pusallage MJF, MAF, JB.
District Governor-elect 306A1, Lion Shana Jalak, multiple district chairperson for Leos, past council chairperson, Lion 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 PMJF, district Rotaract representative, Rotaractor, Mr. Akila Adeshwara,
Country President of ISEC, Mr. Bhanuka Satrasinghe, National President JCI, Mr. Christopher Vijaykulasuriya, multiple district Vice President Leo Lion Rahul Attanayaka.
past District Governor of Lions District 306A1, Lion Chandani Vitanage.
Thank you, everyone.
The time has now dawned to pay homage to our proud nation. May we please request the entire gathering to rise for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Appa Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata, Sundara Siri Barini, Surandi Ati Sobhamana Lanka, Dana Danaya Dekamal Palaturu Piri Jaya Bhumiya Ramya, Apahat Sapa Siri Sita Sadhana, Jeevanaye Mata, Kiriganu Mena Apava Ki Puja, Namo Namo Mata, Appa Sri Lanka, Namo 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 Mata, Ubave Appa Vidya, Ubamaya Appa Satya, Ubave Appa Shakti, Appa Hada Tula Bhakti, Ubba Appa Aloke, Appa Ge Anuprane,
Thank you, everyone. The Leo Multiple District 306, Sri Lanka, together with other youth volunteer movements, the Road Track District 3220, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 Sri Lanka, and 𝐺CI, 𝐺𝐕 International, are jointly organizing Fusion V 2022, the voice of youth for an empowered future.
Fusion V is organized for the second consecutive year, and it will be a common platform for all volunteer organizations in the country to bring together prominent youth volunteer organizations to envision a synergized platform to embark on a new journey together.
As in the start of the program we mentioned, we would greatly appreciate it if all the attendees would keep a space of one seat next to each other, abiding by the health guidelines. And due to the crisis situation and also health guidelines, we've decided to have a limited crowd here today, but we have over 1,000 Leos joining in from online platforms and watching us live as it is. So that's something that we can celebrate. And moving on, Ashin?
Exactly, 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕. Now we would like to invite the chairperson of Fusion V 2022, 𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿
Chief guest for the day, Multiple Council Chairman of Lions Multiple District 306, Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka, PMJF, Multiple District President of Multiple District 306, Sri Lanka, 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕, Ms. 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, Group Chief Executive Officer of 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 PLC, President's Council, Mr. Sally Peiris, President of Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Past Council Chairperson, Dr. Mahesh Pasquale, PMJF, PMAF, endorsed candidate for the Office of International Director of Lions Club International, Mr. Dhannath Fernando, Founder, Chief Operation Officer of Advocate Institute, Moderator of the event, 𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐈𝐻𝐨𝐕, all district governors, vice district governors, past district governors, all line leaders, multiple district vice president of multiple district 306 Sri Lanka, 𝐿𝐸 𝐿𝐸, all district presidents, past district presidents, and all the 𝐿EO leaders. Mr. 𝐵𝐻𝐷𝐿 𝐻𝐷𝐕, country president of 𝐼SEC Sri Lanka, Mr. Akila Adishwara, district Rotaract representative, and all of you 𝐿EOs and Lions who are joining us through all online platforms. Welcome you all to Fusion V 2020. This will be an exclusive attempt of 𝐿EOs of Sri Lanka with the objective of inspiring the youth of Sri Lanka to thrive by educating them to tackle the current economic, social, and political crisis within the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was the event chairperson, Leo Lakisha Pereira. So next we've come to one of the important parts of today's session. And the first segment of it is the respective presentations by our youth organizations. And I think this is a really big thing for everyone gathered here today and joining us online. Belonging to one youth organization, I think you can get an in-depth insight on the other organizations here today and see how we as youth can work together, what are our similarities. So I think our first presentation is from 𝐼SEC.
Exactly, Saumi. Let's see what these youth volunteers, the young blood of Sri Lanka can do and what they are doing right now. So when it comes to 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 is a global platform for youth to develop their professional development and leadership potential through international internships and volunteer opportunities. Its members are interested in world issues, leadership and management, and is an independent, non-profit organization run by students and recent graduates of institutions of higher education. To further educate us on 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽, please welcome the country president of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 Sri Lanka, Mr. 𝐅𝐻𝐻 𝐻𝐻, to the podium.
Good evening, all of you. With the prior permission of the distinguished guests, my dear fellow colleagues from all the other respective organization, club, societies, and ladies and gentlemen. So introducing myself, I'm 𝐅𝐻𝐻 𝐻𝐻, the country president of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 in Sri Lanka. So talking about 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽, I joined 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 when I was an undergraduate in University of Colombo. So the basic concept behind 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 is to develop young leaders. So we are a organization which is established to achieve a vision of achieving peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential, where we want to develop young people to become the bestest versions of themselves by someday. So that's the main objective of ours. So our major solution for that is to provide leadership opportunities. We believe every young person in this world, in this country, even in this plenary, have that potential to become a leader. So what 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 provides is, they are providing a platform for us to develop ourselves as leaders. So talking more about 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽, currently 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 is established across 199 countries all around the world. Give me a second while I'm loading the presentation. Okay, while it is loading, I can go through what 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 is. So we are now established in 109 countries, and Sri Lanka, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 Sri Lanka is one of the branches as well. So talking about 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 in Sri Lanka, we have established within 19 universities in all across Sri Lanka, and at the same time, we recently introduced 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 into schools as well. So thank you very much. So like I mentioned, we have established in 19 universities, and right now, establishing infant organization in schools, and right now we have established it in more than 10 schools as well. So we, as an organization, established in 1995, so 27 years onwards, we have developed 20,000 plus young leaders to this country. And talking about the current situation in 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 in Sri Lanka, we have 1,700 plus members, and all of them going through a unique leadership development model of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽 and trying to become better versions of themselves, which means they are trying to become leaders. So all together past few years, we have developed 21,000 plus membership experience, which means leadership experience across the country. At the same time, our main products are exchanges. 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐽, we usually do student exchanges, which means we are sending young people to other countries. At the same time, young people from foreign countries, they are coming to Sri Lanka. So we believe providing these cross-cultural exposures are essential for them to experience practical experiences in challenging environments. So moving forward, these volunteering and internships programs are the main two types of programs that we are conducting. For an example, our volunteer programs are aligned with SDGs. And the internship programs that we are providing, it is aligned with the companies which are onboarded for our portal. So for an year, we are conducting 1,000 plus exchanges, and at the same time, we have conducted more than 10,000 exchanges throughout the past years. So talking about the incoming exchanges, which means the foreign students or foreign young individuals who are coming to Sri Lanka, they have come to Sri Lanka. More than 7,000 plus foreign volunteers and interns came to Sri Lanka. And approximately per year, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 Sri Lanka bringing a revenue to Sri Lanka more than $500,000 US. At the same time, I want to inform that this is a major situation where all the youth societies, clubs, organization has to rise up because we are in a dying situation in this country. So in that case, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 Sri Lanka established a project called Youth for Youth, where we are trying to develop 100,000 young people all across 25 districts in Sri Lanka. We have started this program, and currently it's ongoing as well. So we already conducted an IR session which, with all the 109 countries, and we got inputs, we got solutions from young individuals from all the other countries to how we can contribute to this country to become, to make sure that this country is a better place for all of us. So talking about Youth for Youth as well, so right now we are conducting it across the schools, universities, as well as other youth societies, clubs as well. And at the same time, as again Sri Lanka, we are more towards professional leadership development as well. So introducing Heading for the Future program is something that we want to highlight as well. Because in here, we are providing school leavers as well as young fresh graduates or undergraduates to find out their career path prior applying for their internships. So this is another program that we are conducting as well. So altogether, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 is an organization. We want to create leaders. We want to create leaders who can inspire others, like the distinguished guests who are in here. So that's the prior motive of us, and we want to create leaders with values. So somehow we can expect a better country in future as well. So that's our main motive, and I'm thankful for Leo as well for inviting all of us to this one platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, the country president of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 Sri Lanka, Mr. Bhanuka Hathurasinghe. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a big round of applause for all 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 leaders who are making the country an impactful and a reality and move forward in a betterment way.
So moving on, we have the Rotaract movement. Rotaract is a global youth movement stemming from Rotary International. It brings together youth in order to exchange ideas with leaders in the community, develop leadership and professional skills, and entertain themselves through service. It is a strong youth-led platform nurturing fellowship and leadership for social innovation in the country. To bring us up to date about the Rotaract movement, we now invite the Rotaract District Representative of Rotaract District 3220, Rotaractor 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕.
Having a wonderful day. Until the presentation comes up, I'll just do a very small introduction of myself. My name is 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲𝐕 Vijaytunga, and I represent the Rotaract movement here in Sri Lanka and Maldives. So must be wondering why how Maldives is also involved. So basically, we are an organization that is attached to Rotary International, and how they have classified the respective districts is based on So basically how our districts are allocated is through Rotary International itself. So they have categorized that, they have decided that Sri Lanka and Maldives should stick together and do some interesting work together, which is why we are together. And in terms of Rotaract in Sri Lanka, okay, it's almost up. Thank you so much. So I just thought I'll just start with a brief introduction as to what our organization is. I'm sorry, is there a delay in this? Or? It's showing me one slide here and a different. I think I'll just continue. It's fine. I can use the slides later on. But we are an organization where we are attached to Rotary International, which has a membership of about 1.4 million members across the world, representing about 46,000 clubs right now. And through this movement, Rotary International, they decided that they wanted to have a youth arm. And that is where Rotrack came into play. So right now, Rotrack is for the ones who are ages 18 and above. And if you're still schooling, you do have Interact, where you can interact with like-minded individuals and get to know people and do interesting projects. Right, super. To a lot of technical difficulties, and wherever we come across technical difficulties, that's no longer trouble anymore. Anyway, I was talking about Rotary International, but I would like, Rotarian Shekhar Mehta is the Rotary International president for this year, and then we have our organization, Rotrack, along with Interact, speaking of the youth, but today I represent Rotrack over here. So Rotract is also, just like Rotary International, is spread across the world. We have over 10,000 clubs with more than 200,000 members, and it's spread across more than 180 countries as of now. We have a couple of values that we believe in Rotract. Some of them are mentioned here. That is, one of the main things as Rotractors, what we do is connect with like-minded individuals. In order for us to do the work that we do, the good work that we do, the service that we do, it's always important that we connect with resource people, with like-minded individuals who are working towards driving that change. And the second one being serving. At any occasion, with regard to all the initiatives that we do, we always try to keep serving. It could be your own members within your club, or it could be the wider community, serving at our utmost importance. And engaging. Engaging is for all of us to engage within our movement, to engage outside our movement, especially thanks to Fusion V. We as Rotractors, we have reached out to organizations such as 𝐷𝐕, 𝐼𝐶𝐬, and we worked on collaborative projects. For example, one such project is Project 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, a community service initiative done together with Rotract, 𝐷𝐕, 𝐼𝐶𝐬, and the Siyapatha Foundation. What we really believe in this is that we can achieve much bigger things together in collaboration than competing as, because we've seen what's going on in the country right now and how competing against each other could go both ways. But in this particular occasion, what we believe is that collaboration is able to bring us much more bigger results basically bring us synergy, and the result of all the work that we do is much bigger than us doing it separately. And then we have develop your professional skills. That is one of the core aspects of Rotaract, where we try to develop leaders, groom leaders with the different skills and the technical knowledge that they require to take up leadership positions and take up different roles in the community and the society that we live in. Having been established in 1968, right now in Sri Lanka, of course into Sri Lanka, Rotaract came in 1969. Ever since, for more than these 50 plus years, we've been having a significant contribution towards the community that we live in. Our organization, the clubs that we have are categorized into 3 groups, namely community-based, institute-based, and corporate-based. So if you're a corporate-based club, you can be a business organization or an entity that has a Rotaract club within your organization. If you're an institute-based club, you might be a private or state-owned institute, an educational institute that has a Rotaract club. Community-based clubs are clubs where the members of the community get together, the ones in close proximity. They can come together, meet and greet, and also do the service that they do. Speaking of Rotaract in Sri Lanka and Maldives, these are the rough figures as of now. We have a membership of roughly over 10,000 with more than 2,500 projects happening in an annual basis. And we are not just talking about projects in terms of numbers, but also quality. So I'll just share a couple of examples in terms of the projects that we have done. In terms of the number of clubs, we have 52 community-based clubs, 37 institute-based clubs, and 1 corporate-based club that is based in Singapore, Sri Lanka. This is the district leadership. The one you see on the left-hand side is myself leading Rotaract this year. The other lady on the other side is Rotarian 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕. She's the Rotary District Governor for the current year. And we have a couple of we basically have 4 main avenues of service, namely professional development, club service, community service, and international service. Then, depending on the district team's goals and the expectations for that respective year, we also have the flexibility of having a couple of other significant avenues. And some avenues that have been consistent throughout the years, that has been delivering a lot of service to our members as well as the rest of the community, would be finance avenues, sports and recreational activities, which we are big on, and digital communication services, as well as public image. I'll just run through, I'm not going to read out all these details, but I'll just run through what these different avenues are. Professional development is basically where we improve the skills and groom young leaders to take up leadership positions, not specifically speaking about the community, but even within their own clubs. How do you lead a group of people? Even if it's a team of 5, how do you give leadership to them? How do you work towards a common goal? What sort of skills do you require to do that? And not simply about leadership only, but also when it comes to different other skills that you require in your workplace, presentation skills, how to use your PowerPoint and Excel, right? So all these things are covered under the professional development avenue, in addition to all the other skills that we were talking about. And then we have club service. Club service is where we interact with each other, get to know new people, get to know your club members, get to know members from the rest of the community, other Rotaractors. This is happening through club service. We have community service, where we do quite a lot of work towards the communities that we live in and understanding the needs of the people, especially during times like these. We have partnered up with multiple corporates in terms of donating dry rice, and how the results of the projects that we do can keep coming in even after we come back once concluding the project. And finally, we have the international services avenue. One project is happening today, and one of our guest speakers over here will also be representing at that event as well. So international service is where we can go beyond our borders and connect with Rotaractors outside our district, Sri Lanka and Maldives, and do the work that we do. Connect with people, introduce ourselves to new people, get their support, especially in the current context where we are driving donation drives for medical equipment and medical supplies. the international road tractors have been very supportive and cooperative in terms of supporting us to get the required donations. That's about the different avenues, but I just thought I'll just share with you a couple of highlight projects. The road tractors from the Rotary Club of University of Morutu are doing is basically they've put out a couple of structures, concrete structures in the middle of the ocean to regrow corals. And these are a couple of snapshots that you see from this little snapshot, the bridge across that traps all the waste, so basically a waste trap. And this was quite an interesting experience where we did an underwater beach ocean cleanup. It's natural and organic and use them in producing organic fertilizer. So they have come up with their own brand, and these people, this community is already selling these products and making it a livelihood for all those people. Talking about the importance of youth this year, don't worry, I'm not going to take too much time after this. I said road tractors are people who learn, gather new skills, acquire new skills, and use that knowledge in terms of serving the community. So if this audience is familiar with technologies that are based on blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, this is one such project where the Rotary Club of University of Kelaniya got down resource people to talk about these topics. They educated themselves. This group of people came with zero knowledge on NFTs and blockchain, but they learned about it, they tried it out, and they published their own NFT collection, which is published on OpenSea, and right now they're selling these NFTs to fund their community service projects. So everyone's complaining about sponsors not giving money, donors not giving money. We are taking new approaches, innovative approaches in terms of funding our projects. So this is the kind of work that happens in RoadTrack. We are more than welcoming all of you to be a part of our initiatives, to collaborate with us and do the good work that we do together. And I would really love to thank all of you for inviting us and for the collaboration of Fusion V, which has brought out these significant initiatives into light, and wish all the very best to the organizing committee as well. Thank you very much from RoadTrack.
Thank you very much, District RoadTrack Representative. So Ashin, I think next we have another movement. I think they are the hosts of today's event.
Exactly, 𝐬𝐲𝐕. So today we are exploring the youth volunteerism in Sri Lanka, the volunteers or the young blood of Sri Lanka who are taking the country to the next level by volunteering, by helping others, by supporting others. So next we have the Leo movement. The Leo movement is the proud youth organization of Lions Club International. Members of Leo clubs embody the best qualities of the incredible organization and are youth who realize the power of action. Leos have been serving communities across the globe for 60 years, gaining valuable leadership experience in the process. To shed the light of the Leo movement, we invite the multiple district president of Leo Multiple 306 Sri Lanka, Leo Line Dilshan Piris, to the podium.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First of all, with the permission of the dignitaries, my fellow Leos and Rotarian, Isaac. So, Chief Guest, multiple Council Chairman, Lance Sri Lanka Fernando, and all the other dignitaries. It is a great privilege to opportunity to address you all Fusion Week 2022, the Voice of Youth, Empower the Future, organizing by the Leo Multiple District 306 Sri Lanka. So we are standing as a Leo's leadership experience opportunity. Being a youth volunteer movement under the Lions Club International, we have grown as the largest youth volunteer organization in the world, having more than 7,600 Leo clubs in 150 countries, with a membership over 190,000. So we have provided ourselves as a global change makers in the country by having contributed to the youth empowerment. Choosing a Leo club will help you grow as an individual and as a leaders you join global family of young people making the world a better place. There are a lot of ways to people can give back their community, but being a Leo is much more than service. The Leo movement is introduced in Sri Lanka in 1969, and we are serving together ever since. So I am proud to say that we have reached membership over 12,500 in all the 6 Leo districts under 176 Leo clubs in Sri Lanka. Even under the pandemic and socio-economic crisis, we have been able to serve more than 119 million beneficiaries by spending 4 billion rupees throughout this year. Our valued membership spread all over the countries under different communities and institutes, which is more than divine. I'm thankful for my district presidents, leaders for being supportive and organizing this event, making very successful. All the district president has done their best throughout this year by working hard and with commitment, make the movement better place for the future. This year, with the support of all the fellow leaders, we have been able to achieve technological advancement. Innovation, we introduced the online reporting platform. We secured our membership increasing from 9,300 to 12,500 in this year. We always work hard towards common goal, which helping community and our society. Leos are the volunteers given all the youngest an opportunity to grow themselves personally, professionally. We engage, empower. Fusion Week is not simply organizational level. It is a beyond national level, since we Leos and Isaac, Rotaract, and JCI, we all are international volunteers organization with the simple motivate building your leaders to represent citizens. We are hoping this panel discussion will empower and engage our youth to be more motive and sound their journey service to community. Hope you will own this effective discussion, and you can ask anything have you as a leaders and young leaders in this country with our distinguished panelists. So hope you have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leola and Dilshan Piris, the leaders spearheading the Leos of Sri Lanka, Leo Multiple District 306. And ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause to the Leos who also serve the community for the betterment of the community and the society. Moving on, we have an entertainment item by some of our Leos. And we cordially invite the Leos of the Leo Club of Sri Jayawardhanapura University of Leo District 306A2 to the stage.
දිස්නෙන්නේ නුඹ කෝ කියා ඇසුවා එදා මාගවින් තනියයි වැළපෙන්නේ කඳුලින් රැපනේ තරුවත් දිස්නෙන්නේ නුඹ කෝ කියා ඇසුවා එදා මාගවින් තනියයි වැළපෙන්නේ කඳුලින් සදා මල්දම් ගොතා හිරිවැටුණු සඳසයා නිදිවර පුරෑමා තනි වෙන්න හදවත් දැන් හිඟයි වැහි බිඳු වැටෙනවා නම් සුළඟක් සැලෙනවා නම් මොහොතක් තනි වී විඳිමේ ආදරේ ලම්බෙන්නෙවා නම් රාසක් කියනවා නම් මොහොතක් තනි වී සොයමි ආදරේ छबीला तारा रंगीला तारा रंग वेद जुए तारी बात छोगाला तारा ओए छबीला तारा ओए रंगीला तारा रंग वेद जुए तारी बात रे छोगाला तारा ओए छबीला तारा ओए रंगीला तारा रंग वेद जुए तारी बात रे
Let's give them another big round of applause for their performance. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have arrived at the most awaited segment of today's Fusion V 2022. It's the panel discussion, shall we?
Fusion V 2022, the voice of the youth for an empowered future, is conducted as a common platform for youth volunteer organizations in the country with the objective of inspiring youth of Sri Lanka to thrive by educating them on how to tackle the current economic crisis within the country.
We are graced by five distinguished panel members who will be driving the energetic young leaders to steer successfully in volunteerism to bring about a positive change in the society amidst the ongoing economic and social crisis.
𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, we have many questions put forward by our youth, especially within the past few days. There was a Google form that was rolled out among volunteers within Sri Lanka, and we've collected a certain amount of questions that have been put forth by our youth. So this would be a great platform to hear from our panel itself on what their thoughts are about tackling this economic crisis.
So, ladies and gentlemen, to take us through an engaging and effective discussion, let us invite our panel.
And our moderator.
Yeah.
Okay, starting off with the first panel member, Ms. Sri Lanka, the Group Chief Executive Officer for 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐻 Holdings PLC. She began her professional journey as an audit trainee in 1988 at the age of, I don't think we'll skip the age, with Arthur Anderson, who was represented by 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 and Co., where she went on to hold the positions of Audit Manager and Director, Consultancy. Ms. Kasturi's first position at 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐻 was with HEM Tours as Finance Director. She took over the Managing Director of 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐻's Mobility position in 2011, and under her guidance, the sector portfolio changed and grew exceptionally, with 4 times growth in earnings by venturing into logistics and maritime spaces. Consequently, she was appointed as Group CEO of 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐻 Holdings in October 2020, making her the first female to hold this position in a public quoted conglomerate in Sri Lanka. She was honored by the Parliament of Sri Lanka in 2019 when she was named to the coveted list of women changemakers in Sri Lanka. She's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and alumni of Senior Executive Leadership Program at Harvard Business School. We cordially invite our first panelist, Ms. Sri Lanka, Group CEO of 𝐷𝐻𝐼𝐻 Holdings PLC.
Next, we have our second panelist of the day, Mr. Salya Peiris, the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Salya Peiris, PC, heads his law chambers practicing in the areas of criminal law, public law, and fundamental rights in the appellate and original courts. He was appointed in February 2018 as the first chairman of the Office on Missing Persons, a new institution established as part of Sri Lanka's reconciliation mechanism. Between October 2015 to March 2018, he was a member of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. He was Deputy President of the Bar Associations of Sri Lanka from 2015 to 2017 and has been advocate for strengthening the human rights, a strong and independent bar in Sri Lanka, and consistently stood for the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. Salya Peiris is a lecturer in law and has contributed many papers and articles on law and politics. Mr. Salya Peiris is an Enhover Fellow in an alumnus of the Dealing with the Past DWP programs, Switzerland and IVLP USA. We would like to invite Mr. Salya Peiris to the stage.
Next up, We have 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 PMJF-MAF, endorsed candidate for the Office of International Director, Lions Clubs International, the Chairman and Managing Director at 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 Engineering Private Limited. He is a proud product of Ananda College, Colombo, the leading Buddhist school on the island. He received his Bachelor of Science in Engineering degree from the University of Peradeniya, and subsequently he obtained conferment as a Chartered Civil Engineer from the Institute of Engineers, Sri Lanka. He is the Chairman, Managing Director of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 Engineering Pte. Limited, carrying out construction projects in Sri Lanka and Republic of Maldives. He obtained a master's degree in business administration at the University of Lincolnshire, Humbersland, United Kingdom. He was an executive committee member of the Sri Lankan Korea Economic Cooperation Committee and the vice president of the International Chamber of Commerce, Sri Lanka. He was a secretary of the Major and Specialist Constructors Association of Sri Lanka and was awarded the honorary membership by Alexander Hamilton Institute, Inc., Hong Kong, in recognition of continuing efforts to acquire knowledge of modern management practice through Executive Skills Program. He was instrumental in the building of the Golden Jubilee Eye Hospital, Kadavatha, and was invited by the Lions Club of Colombo, Somerset in 1966 as a charter member. He was elected as the district governor with 100% yes vote in the year 2007-2008 and was unanimously selected as multiple council chairperson in 2008-2009. Past council chairperson 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 is the endorsed candidate for the post of international director from Sri Lanka and 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕 for the years 2022 to 2024. Let us invite 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐴 PMJF-MAF endorsed candidate for the Office of International Director, Lions Clubs International, the Chairman and Managing Director at 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐴 Holdings Engineering Private Limited.
Ladies and gentlemen, next we have Mr. Dhananath Fernando, Chief Operations Officer and founder of Advocata Institute. Mr. Dhananath is the Chief Operating Officer and one of the founding members of Advocata Institute. Before founding Advocata, Mr. Dhananath worked as an Associate Research Director at Breakthrough Business Intelligence, a leading market research agency in Sri Lanka. He read his bachelor's degree in biosciences and biochemistry at the University of Colombo and is of the International Visitor Leadership Program by the State Department of the United States of America, as well as a program of the Atlas Think Tank Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C. In his social responsibilities, Dhananath works with people in need by volunteering with Candlelight Sri Lanka, a government-approved humanitarian organization. He was a part of the team training vision and hearing impaired students on swimming and safety, and the main coordinator of personality, career development, and English training for undergraduates. Mr. Dhananath is an enthusiastic mountain climber and a trekkler. He completed his Everest base camp in May 2019, congratulations with that, and the charter trek, one of the widest trek based on the ranking by CNN, a frozen river at the Indian-Tibetan border in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Dhananath Fernando.
Finally, our moderator of today's event. He's a profession in the field of human resource management, a proactive HR profession who supports organizations to achieve an operational objectives by creating a niche in their intellectual property. He is currently leading HR operations at Cisco Labs Sri Lanka, a proud product of Isipatana College. He holds a edexcel BTech Level 7 postgraduate professional qualification in strategic management and leadership and Master of Business Administration from the University of Northampton. He's a past district president of Leo District 306C2. He is a profound Leo who served the Leo District and the Leo Multiple District to his fullest capacity. He is now involved in Lions Club of Colombo, Somerset, and is a past president of the club. Let us now invite the moderator of the event, 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐴, Senior Team Lead, People Operations at Cisco Labs. 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐴, the mic is over to you.
very good evening to all, and a very good evening to our distinguished panelists. I think we are gathered here today to actually discuss on a very big problem statement and a very important problem statement that we all have as Sri Lankans and as the youth. So the scope that has been given to me today is to discuss on the current social, economical and the political crisis we are facing as a country, and how can the youth of Sri Lanka can contribute towards making the situation better. So before I go into the questions and open the discussion, I would like to just give a program outliner here. I would like to kindly invite the panelists. Please feel free to discuss or convey your ideas either in Sinhala or English for the benefit of the audience and all the online people who are joining us through the live discussion. If time permits, we will try to take few questions from the audience as well. And our objective is to open a discussion. So this will actually make a way and open pathways for the youth to be more proactively engaged in finding solutions for the crisis that we are facing. So before moving into very selective questions, there have been questions that have been sent to us by Leo's and other youth organization members from the form that we have sent. So I would like to open this discussion with a general question to the panelists. This is a time in need for all Sri Lankans to support each other and support this system to figure out solutions to the crisis that we're actually facing. As per your opinion, just to put a platform or a starting point to this discussion, what is your opinion, how the role of the youth should be in this current situation, or what should they do in this current previous year? So I would like to invite Ms. Kasturi Chellaraja to start, and we can move into the other panelists.
Yeah, good evening, and it's a pleasure to be part of this discussion. And I guess today the only reason Sri Lankans have a voice is because of the youth decided to take a stance, and our generation didn't. So it's great, and I think you have done a great job. So if you look at the three pillars you said of the crisis being economic, political and social, few things the youth can do. On economic, the fundamental thing is forget the reasons. We've come here over decades, and don't blame anything but that the fact that all of us didn't know what the right policy should be, didn't push anybody to do the right thing. For example, that led to the political side. For example, who would have voted if somebody said they're going to increase taxes? We wouldn't have voted. Who would have voted that if they said they were going to privatize something? Nobody would have voted. So we have voted the wrong people for the wrong manifestos. So these are history, right? What can you do now is you have to correct those. So first thing on economic, you have to get educated what it is, about what the problem is and what the corrective action is. And I'm not the person there. You have Dhananath here, and he's one of the best who would communicate in single language. You all have to make that and amplify it. Because if you don't understand what reforms mean to each of us as a human being, to your neighbor, to your household, you're going to react. So that's firstly, right? Educate. Because beyond that, influence is at the committees and people who transact beyond that. But with that knowledge, you have to make sure that we stand up for what the right things need to be done in the political system. In the political system now, you can't change it overnight. That's so entrenched. I think the Salia here would be able to tell it. But at least we should be making sure we have the right people there and make some accountability, not to hammer them at every mistake. People will make mistakes, but there has to be some accountability on what has to be done there. So on that part of it, I think youth has to play a part on. They can play a part on voicing their opinion of what needs to be done, or even standing up for what the rights of each of us as citizens. This is the strength of countries like India and Bangladesh. They stand up for what's needed. The corporates stand up for the right reason. We have always been a quieter nation, very docile nation by nature. The third one is the most important part. Look, for me personally, May 9th was a real, it kind of reset. I actually took time to recover because I went through 1983. '83 brought this whole social thing where we saw people burning houses, my family's houses, coming to kill us. It's for some reason because you were born a Tamil and this whole thing. And people didn't support or people didn't stand by each other, right? And burning and for the haves, it became a haves and have-nots and all. But fast forward, I was so proud to see, even though we saw the negative side, the good thing was everybody stood by each other. You found people from officers running to protect the people who were vulnerable. Everybody said, I mean, even in those things, there were people with agendas, but there were people standing up and saying, don't do this. Keep that thing. Whatever said or done, don't let a political agenda or a racial agenda or just a mere malicious agenda or an agenda to steal influence us to turn against each other. We also have to make sure we get the law, the enforcement officers to do their job to protect us. We can't be doing that, taking law onto our hands. And I think all of us as a country have had a base of religion, right? Whichever is the religion, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity. We were never taught to go and burn a house and say very good, kill a person and say very good. We have come to this. So I think get back as youth, get the fundamentals of being what a good human being is and help each other. You all have an ecosystem, bring that part of it, that social fabric, right? And then you will need that because today if you embark on these reforms, you need that social net. We need to be able to support the most vulnerable. There are people on the streets who survive on a meal a day. There are people from middle class who are struggling now. How do we support them? So we'll have to get some social net. All of us will have to take sacrifices and give from what we have. But I think that's our moral obligation as a Sri Lankan, as a community, because no country is going to take us at this point. The whole world is going through a crisis. We can't say everybody's in their flood, they're going as floodgates, but end of it, this is our home. If it means that all of us take sacrifices to support, we need that. And you all are the ones who actually have the energy now to do it. You need backing, we'll give it, but you all can make it. And you all have an ecosystem. So these are the three areas, and I think simple ways you all can impact this.
Thank you very much. I think it was a great start to the question. So I would like to move into Mr. Salia. So, anything to add on this to share your ideas on the same line?
Yes, I think one thing is to be important is to be vigilant about our rights. I think for far too long we have, as a community, we have kept quiet and let things pass. So when there have been corruption or when we saw, so for example, I'll give you a few months ago, there were people who had been taken into custody and who died in police custody, and the police said that they were taken out to search for weapons. And at that time, very few people took a stand because those who were alleged members of the underworld. And well, we sometimes think it doesn't matter, they are bad people, so even if they are killed by the police, in police custody, that's all right. But that is not correct. So what we have to do, we have to be vigilant, to be alert about our rights, and also we must not be frightened, we must not let fear stop us from taking a position. I think it's so very important at this time to take a position. It might be difficult. Sometimes it is difficult to take a position when you think you are right, but you know that sometimes many others might take a different view. But I think we have to do that. But we also have to be conscious that violence does not pay results. And when I say violence, it is not only going to the streets and burning, also not to promote violence. So for example, if on Facebook, if we were to share an address of someone who we think ought to be dealt with, that is wrong, right? I have seen there were people who shared on Facebook the addresses of politicians, and some people who are not so bad people also. But whether it's bad or not, I don't think we can promote violence. That must be very clear, and violence defeats the objective. So I think we should look for the non-violent approach, and that non-violent approach has succeeded. I don't know how many of you have heard of this, of how in 1985, in the Philippines, there was the People's Power Revolt, when literally millions of people got onto the roads against the Philippines dictator Ferdinand Marcos. But there was no violence, right? And they say, I've read how people, they say people stopped tanks, people just stood on the road and they just stopped the tanks of the army, and that was a non-violent approach. Of course, now 35 years later, Marcos's son is the president of the Philippines. That is a different matter. But at that time, that was a historic moment. Thirdly, we also have to be strategic. You know that I'm taking this from the film Lincoln. They say the compass shows you the north, but it doesn't show you how you get to the north. If you just go directly traveling north, you will fall into a swamp. So you have to be strategic to know when to fight, when to remain silent, but not to forget your ultimate goal. But this is, I think, probably the most difficult time for our country. In the road where I live, there is a man who does laundry work. He said, sir, මට අවුරුදු 70යි. ඒත් කවදාවත් මේ වගේ කාලයක් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. මැතිනිගේ කාලෙවත් මේක නැහැ. මෙහෙම උනේ නැහැ. Those of you who know the 70 to 77, that was supposed to be a fairly bad period. But, so this is a very difficult time for our country. And I think we need to also support each other. We have to look at yesterday, I had to happen to meet a particular minister, and he said, do you realize that if a family has to eat 2 loaves of bread for a month, per day for a month, they will have to spend 10,500 rupees to buy just 2 loaves of bread alone. So that is the situation we are in. I think we have to look at the vulnerable people in our country. And I think this calls for sacrifice. So whether it is increases in taxes or taking an active part, we do need to do that. But Sri Lanka is also, we have a history of resilience. And this is not the time to lose hope. And that is why I find fault with those in power that they are not giving people hope. People are in despair. But I think what people should do, the powers that we should do, is to give people hope. They say in the 1932, the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt used to every week come on to the radio and have a fireside chat. It used to be called a fireside chat with the people and share and empathize with them. I think what we lack, what our politicians lack, is empathy. And that is where I think as young people, you can feel in to have empathy for the other people of this country.
I think that actually came into a great point, because we are moving the question to Mahesh Pascal, who is in the voluntary services. So I would like to go in the same lines and ask his opinion, starting from the point that Mr. 𝐴ᵉ stopped with empathy, and especially looking at there's a segmentation in the community who needs much more support in this current situation. So how best the youth can come into this, and what is the role that they can play?
Today, actually, all our youth are taking the lead to change the systems. We understand the problem, what we are facing today is mainly because of our systems. So I'm happy and we are proud to see that youth are taking the lead. Actually, more than we are advising them at this moment, we can take some advice from them, because they are far ahead at the moment. And only thing, as our previous panelists have mentioned, we have to be very careful when we are in this type of a situation. Today we are having a synergy effect of economic crisis and a political crisis. So we are facing it. When these people asking for a system change, we have to support them, because we all understand what we are having, what we are enjoying today is purely because of our systems. Or why we lost our values. As our panelists mentioned, in 1983 this was happened. And we, again and again, if this is going to repeat, it's a terrible situation. That means we are not learning anything from our experiences. We have to be careful, because we have to now, not like 1983 or 1995 or 96. Today, all world will come to know what we do within seconds. So they will judge us. It is unfortunate. It won't take 2 minutes for them to give us a judgment whether it is right or wrong. We have to accept it. So we have to be very careful when we are fighting for a good cause. There may be various type of elements involved in this purpose to ruin our good cause of what we are trying to do. First thing I want to tell my dear brothers and sisters, we have to be careful of what we are doing. Our objectives are right, great, and we have to understand that, but at the same time, we have to understand the people who want to ruin our good intentions. That is something we are facing today. The word of the day is 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕. The people who created this may have good intentions. The people who have against them, went and hammered them, are not in the same thing. The people who reacted that also not in the same manner. But we are there, as our 𝐷𝐻 said, we want to have a very peaceful 𝐅𝐻𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, because that is how it happened in Philippines. Not only Philippines, there are so many countries, even in India. When Mahatma Gandhi led that country, he never fought with this type of various actions against the same people. That time also, India divided, some were with British, some were with Indian leaders, but they never advocate that type of things. My thinking, as volunteers, we are giving our services, our time, we are putting our effort free of charge. So that is the value of volunteers. When you do all these things in that manner, we have to be very careful that it is not going to be misled by any of these people who want to get various other advantages of our action. And I want to tell you, we need not to discuss why we are in this situation today. Only 2 things we have to do, as far as I am concerned. First thing, we have to stop this corruption, any level. Corruption is not a thing in this society, only with politicians. Don't misunderstand that. I am telling you through my sheer experience. This is everywhere. Everywhere. Today, even in the petrol pump operator is going through this same thing. We have to understand that is now rooted in our country, in our society. So this maybe politicians introduced this to us, but now our government sector, I'm really scared to say this, but even in government sector, top officers are also not different to the politicians. We have to eliminate this. Don't blame only the politicians. Blame them. I'm not telling you not to blame them, but we have to understand as a whole now what is happening in the country. And not only that, we have to be very careful to give the right place to the right person. That is where always we have went wrong. We never do that. Only one thing I want to add, if you know how this Singapore selected their 4th Prime Minister, under what circumstances and how they did it, that itself is a great thing, great way of doing things for us to also understand. That is something that I want you to understand and study. If I have more time, I will let you know what it is, how they did it. But we have to be very careful. We have good objectives. There are so many elements to disturb us. We have to be careful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahesh Paskal. So I would like to continue this to Mr. Dhananath to share his views on the first question. We are still on the first question, and I think a lot of good ideas and suggestions and advices are given to the youth and how we should be behaving in this situation. So I would like Mr. Dhananath to continue.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm honored to join this discussion. The often question that I get is, how long will this crisis is going to go? And some ask personal questions as well. When can we buy probably a vehicle, and when when would this cost of living will come down, all questions. So rather than directly answering the question, I wanted to say there's a lot of positives that has come out from this crisis, but we have to understand the nature of this situation, and it will be a slow process. It's the nature of this game. It's a marathon. It's a slow process. Since most of you are volunteers, I'll connect it with a story through my volunteer experience. I call this process is slow as the walk of a gentleman called 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕's walk. Now, 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕 was a crippled child from Kandy. His parents were very poor. His father died when he was 10 from a cancer. So that's where I got to know his story through my volunteering experience at a humanitarian organization called 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕. So 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕 was crippled, so he started his education on a borrowed wheelchair. His parents really couldn't, his mother really couldn't finance his education. But 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕, cut a long story short, his process was very slow because he started school like few years after where he was supposed to start. He came to Morato University with just 1,000 rupees in hand in 2011. And he got a super first class. There's a difference between a first class and a super first class. And he got a scholarship at National University of Singapore. Very slow process because he couldn't walk. And Captain Elmo, who was the founder of 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕, he had said, Jayatilaka's best meals have been a fish bun and a cream bun when he was at university. And then he graduated from National University of Singapore, and then he got a scholar at University of Oxford as a postdoctoral researcher for oncology. And now he's a researcher at Oxford. It's a very slow process. My message is this crisis is a slow process for recovery for Sri Lanka. And we should do it with the right things in the setup. So that's why I think Kasturi also said there are, youth has taken a stance, that's why things changed. And that's why I think Mr. Piri said, don't go for the violence because it's a slow process. It's like the 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕's process. You can be, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but when you're a crippled, walking, not walking basically, crawling, at just coming 1,000 rupees, you really don't know what's going to happen. We are in that process. We are in that early stages. But I strongly believe there will be that moment of glory at Oxford if I connect it with 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕's story. It will be a slow process. But that's the rule, those are the rules of the game. It's slow, but we can recover. But to recover, what we need to do is to absorb these difficult times. Like the best meals of 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕 was a cream bun and a fish bun or a malupang in Sinhala terms. So we have to absorb that. So we have to cut down our expenditure. But we have to understand when we cut down our expenditure is someone else's income. So they will suffer. And their income will be someone else's expenditure, so it will shrink at one point. And we are in that phase, rather we are at the very early stages of that phase. So, but it doesn't mean that we should be, what do you call, in Sinhala you call apeksha bangattara pattana, where you should really get upset about it and you become violent or you try to get shortcuts. That's not going to work. It's a tough time, it's a marathon. So you have to have that endurance to pass that period. So that's my key message to youth. And that's why I think organizations like Rotaract, Leo, Lions, their voluntary work is also quite important, because like when 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕 came to Morato, like a small organization which I volunteered like 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐲𝐕, gave him a scholarship to maintain his studies, a very basic amount. And that's what supported Pahala Gedara Jayatilaka to, from Moratuwa to go to NUS to Oxford. So your little things matters a lot. It takes a long way. And I am also a strong believer of strengthening that social safety net through private charities and like through private support, because that adds a lot. Because I saw the numbers. I think if I remember right, the Leo Club has spent about 4 billion rupees on this year. So our social safety net Samurdhi spends about 50 billion a year. So that if the Leo itself is donating 4 billion, so it's a significant amount. So, but it's the targeting is what is important, that the public policy angle has to come into play. But for youth, this is a very vital period. We have to reset the economy with the right principles, strengthening and prioritizing the right principles. And when you build Sri Lanka in the next phase with the right principles, I don't think anyone can stop us from going towards the victory. And I'm happy that some of those fundamentals are coming, as Mr. Peri said. Now people are taking those things very seriously. But the thing is, you can't see a short-term victory. It's a tough period. You are really passing that tough period. But I'm very confident and optimistic that things will change, because we have been progressing. If you look at since 70s, Kasturi mentioned how unfortunate, that 80s incidents were. Then we had a 30-year-long war, and then we had Easter attacks, we had droughts, we had a tsunami, and there's this resilient aspect, or like that attribute which we always Sri Lankans brought very strongly. And now there's something forming, but I think no one really can't see where it's forming. So we have to, as individuals, we have to contribute to that proper forming, and that contribution could be sometimes being refrained and being out of on wrongful acts like violence or promoting something unnecessary, but to embrace each other and support each other and survive at this difficult time.
Thank you very much, because I think I can actually go into a different question I was planning to ask a little later. So I would like to direct this question again to Mr. Dhananath. In relation to Pahala Gedara Jayatilaka's story, I think it's going to be a slow process, but now currently as the country we are getting a lot of financial support from the neighboring countries. A lot of services organizations have involved, and also from government and political level as well. We are getting a lot of credits, loans, certain donations, etc. That has amounted to a certain level to sustain and continue with certain provisions and providing certain things to the people. But as long term, even this is going to be a slow process. What should be our next step from here? What is the long-term strategy should be to come out of this financial crisis if it is not going to be an immediate solution? How long will we be able to sustain with these loans, and what should we be doing with that financial support?
On a public policy point of view, some of the decisions that the government has made is, I think, in the right direction. But of course, on all those decisions, there's a plus side and a minus side. Now, because of the high cost of living, or in economic terms high inflation, we have to increase the interest rates. But when you increase the interest rates, all the micro and small medium enterprises, even big companies, are going to badly suffer. Even like common people who are using credit cards and all that, they are going to suffer because their interest rates are going to go up. But inflation is a bigger enemy than that problem, so that's why they had to settle to that. So likewise, on a public policy point of view, we are looking to get the bridge financing, or we are trying to get that additional 500 million as per the central bank governors yesterday COPE committee discussions, or like the interviews. So that 500 million will be difficult without having proper political stability. But when I say political stability, it is not like having a cabinet or like assigning members. It's like that work plan is what's going to come forward. It's like, when you have a company, you can have directors and CEO and all that. But if they are not really capable of running a company, you can't say that company is stable, because they're definitely going to go bankrupt. So that stability is there. I think it's also coming slowly, but again, it's a chaotic process, because not everyone in the same wavelength, and this has come quite, had come quite suddenly, but there are a lot of dimensions into that. So for the moment, the reality is we really don't have any funding in the pipeline, except some of the funding from the World Bank and all that. And with the debt restructuring process, our neighboring countries are also somewhat reluctant, because we have already borrowed money from them, especially Japan, China and India, and even Asian Development Bank. Japan is the main donor. So again, once we have suspended their debt, and we can't again go and we can ask, but it's just because of the relationship between the countries that they support. So at the moment, it's difficult. I think that's why everyone tries to bring some, scrape really the bottom of the barrel and bring some money into the system. But I think in the shorter term, it would be very difficult, because now the IMF had said we need to establish the debt sustainability for them to come for a program. World Bank had pretty much said the same thing. They said some of the available funds we can direct it to for the essential services, but it will be difficult. But I think when we now the debt restructuring front, we have taken some positive steps. There are two agencies, the financial advisors and the legal advisors have appointed. So that's the first step. So if everyone says, okay, debt restructuring has to come, so then there has to be an agency to run it. So that's moving. Now the next step is to go to that debt restructuring process and settle it. That will have some strain on the financial system, in my view. So these 3-4 months will be very difficult. So fasten your seat belts and let's navigate through that, keep the nose above the water. But with that, I think after 9-12 months, things will slowly, they'll be forming, coming in hopefully. But it won't come just like, it won't fall from the sky. We all have to do our part. Even at the minuscule level, let's do what is possible. Then we'll be able to go through this.
Great. So on this long-term strategy, I think one of the main pillars is to make sure that the country is politically stable to a greater extent. I would like to direct this question to Mr. Saliha Pires. Without party politics aside, what should be the actual role of the parliament in such a situation?
Yeah, I think the role of the parliament and politicians is, firstly, the country is going through a grave crisis, and parties have to unite. That is why, in fact, the Bar Association, we said there must be a government of national unity. Now, government of national unity is not a government of several parties, pardon me for using these words, where you poach members from other parties. I will be very frank about this. That is not a government of national unity. Government of national unity is where you sit down, where all the leaders sit down, you understand the problem the country is facing, the grave crisis the country is facing. And the example I gave when we discussed with some of the leaders who came to meet us or who invited us, I said, you look at the war, the Second World War, there was a war cabinet, and the opposition leader became the deputy prime minister. And there was a prime minister who was acceptable. In fact, Churchill was not the first choice. He was the second choice. But anyway, they had a war cabinet and they got together. But you can't do it if you poach members from different parties and say, now this is our all-party cabinet. That is not an all-party cabinet. We want a government of national unity where truly, really and truly, you are there to solve the problem of the country and you are not there for the perks. Now, so for instance, we have now the talk of state ministers being appointed. Just think of the reaction of the people, what the people would think. So that is, I think, one, a government of national unity. Secondly, you have to come up with, you have to build institutions. The crisis we are in, now I have heard some politicians say this is an economic crisis which has caused a political crisis. Not true. It is the crisis of governance, the breakdown in institutions which has resulted in this. Yesterday you saw the members of the monetary board giving evidence before COPE, testifying before COPE, and some of the members were very frank. And these had to be, we also know privately that there were some members who several months ago were warning, but anyway the majority of the monetary board felt otherwise. So this is because of the breakdown of institutions. Now for a long time, we Sri Lankans, we are in the habit of looking for a savior. Every election, we look at someone and we think he will come down, you might, whatever term you might call him, and say we think he's going to be the savior. Then a few years down the line, we become disappointed. And we kick him out, bring in a new savior, again, the same old story. So what the message I want to say is we must build institutions, the machinery. Now that is where constitutional amendments come in, where you have a strong base. You ensure that whether it be the government or maybe semi-government sector, you have strong institutions, you have the right people in place. When you have the right people in place and the machinery in place, then some of the problems then you are looking for a reset. So whether take institutions like the central bank, other institutions, I do concede even the legal system in this country has been criticized. And so we have to look at how we can set these systems in place and through that achieve stability. But just because someone says, now we must want political stability, so let there be political stability, that is not going to happen. It's not going to work like that. We have to work for that stability. But the danger of not having that stability is, I think that might, and Kasturi might be able to enlighten us more on this, but from what I have heard, that the international institutions, multilateral institutions, other countries, will support us only if there is that sort of long-term stability. And if they must have the confidence in what we are doing. And this is where we as citizens come in. We must press our leaders to start working on that stability. And this is where we need people to be honest, to us, to be truthful to us. I just shared a post on Facebook. I looked at from the 16th to the 27th, the messages which we got on Adadharana on gas supply, saying 80,000 tons or 80,000 cylinders to be provided daily. That was the message on the 16th. Then saying, no, tomorrow we are going to get gas. Now, the last 3 days messages, there will be no distribution of gas. It is on the way. But I think we need people to tell us also where we are. As citizens, we need to be told the truth. And I think the powers that be must take us into their confidence. And that is, I think, very important.
So this political instability, which has led to financial instability, to economical crisis, and lifestyles are falling down a little bit. People are now getting very impatient. So I would like to direct this question to Ms. Kasturi Tellarada. The youth in the country are very impatient right now with these changes, and we see a lot are migrating. They are looking for a lot of overseas opportunities. Talent is actually moving out of the country. And looking for better lifestyles. And how does the private sector or the corporates find this challenge, and what sort of strategies can we do to retain this talent actually in the country? Because I personally believe if the talent stays with the country is where we can actually turn things around faster, because actually we have a good talent pool. But if talent starts moving out, it's going to be a very big challenge, and the process is going to be much more slower.
So you're right, it is that there is all the instability, and there is a lot of young people who are wanting a different future. They've lost hope, right? So if they felt that there's going to be hope and some turnaround and they can stomach it in a year or two, they would stay back. The fundamental of losing hope is the fact that I think they're all jaded the fact how the ecosystem has broken. Salia talked about the institutions. I think years back, institutions worked. We had good civil administrators. Today you don't, because politics has moved into that. And when we don't have a method of making sure the right people are brought into power, or right people have the right to run for election, like the Singapore system, who is appointed. I mean, when you appoint a minister, I know the minister of the ports in Singapore, because the ports is a very important part. He actually was sent to Rotterdam for 3 months to learn about it, and he came back. He's a professional who's paid a thumping salary. So we get the good people, pay them a good salary, because for God's sake, on the other side, there's so much of corruption. So either you eliminate that and do that, but we need, so they've lost hope that because it's a total cleanup, right? It'll take time, it'll take more than a year to do that institutional change. But as long as that agenda is spoken and all parties push for it, including people. So corporates, one thing we need to do is, look, we have to survive. All can't go, but in order to survive, we need the talent here. In order to attract the talent, we also should be able to be part of a solution versus just complaining. We've also been at fault. Corporates have been at fault, scared to stand up because the next government comes and penalizes you. If you speak, you're penalized. So then you say enough is enough. I mean, either ways, you're not getting any favors. Some of the corporates don't get any favors from any part of it. And you stand up and you talk about what's needed. And one part of it, we do only bid on fair play. Those are things we talk about. We talk about we'll stand in our right on the queue. We don't pay for fast track. These things have to change. We have fed this system. So those things we'll also have to correct to give the employees also some hope, saying, look, we're also changing the way we operate. You all stay back. It's a tough thing, but what we also have to portray is, I believe in every crisis, there's going to be growth. You have to be digging deep. Every time we've fallen as a country, or even Himas has gone through enough challenges. But each time we went through challenges, we've come out stronger, because you kind of go through the clutter and figure out what are you rebuilding again. So in this time when we are rebuilding for a better tomorrow, and you'll be coming out way better in terms of skills, in terms of outcomes, and in terms of talent. We have to craft bigger roles for them, give them challenging roles and empower them. So it's a hard sell, but I think the sell can be made. You have to be able to waiting. So we have this habit now in Sri Lanka, he or she is good talent, but we'll wait a couple of more years because I think she needs a bit more of experience. So now I think we have to say, look, you're ready, take that risk, give that role, give that pay you have to give, and get that person to actually run for the next 2 years. Because look, when they go for these overseas things, they're desperate. You might be a talented person, might be picking stuff in a supermarket. You rather have that talent doing something great here in another 5 years. But we need to sell that story to them. We need to create enticing jobs for them to want to stay. We need to give them a head of, if you think they're not ready, take that chance and give it to them. And so that they will actually have something to stay back for. So we all have a part to play, but I think like Salia says, the main governance and institutional change, and I'm not sure how do we get the right people sit in the right place and devolve politics from running. So if you have in a company, if I simplify it, we have a strategy. Tomorrow if I leave, the new CEO shouldn't be throwing that paper out and throwing the whole management team out and bringing all the cronies that new CEO has. You see who is good there. There are good people there. See whether the strategy is yet valid. If it is, just continue and do much more good things on it, or eliminate what is wrong and do the good things. But we have a habit, even in this transition, you can see already the new people who are coming in are chasing certain people, and sometimes I'm visible to some industries. Today I was thinking, no, you can't fault people. Very quickly we find that we stop and say, this went wrong because this person didn't do. Honestly, it's a process which didn't work. You have to learn to get out of this habit of faulting people versus the process. The process didn't work. If they have conveniently, now there is no process. I must be honest, for everybody's benefit, institutional processes, whether it's procurement or anything, is broken. So there is no process there. Yeah, I'll stop at that.
Sorry. So I think as always, time is a very challenging thing to beat. I would like to continue on that questions with all the ideas and the advices and the suggestions that came out. One thing is now we need to follow a process. Like Mr. Salia said, we cannot wait for a savior. And we need to make sure correct processes are in place, even on the economic sort of solutions that we are looking. It's going to be a long-term process. Whatever that the current government or the parliament decide cannot be changed next year. If so, this process is going backwards. But to build these processes, and us, my personal philosophy is in each individual there is a leader. It's just nobody should be appointing you or giving you a title or authority. That's how I think the great history of Sri Lanka has been built, where we talk about self-sufficiency, where we have been a great nation with technology. We still talk about 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕 being the wonder of the world, etc. All of that is because of the technology, but that has gone out and we have been started depending on certain people. How can we change this thought process where people take actually leadership to themselves and start seeing how they can actually be a part of this process, that they can run this process and also be very self-sufficient. Like we believe in ourselves, we don't want somebody else to actually tell or give that process. We do what is right. I think that's the biggest challenge that we have, what do we call attitude change or aakalpamaya venasak. I think it's a very broader question, but I would like to get a little bit of insight from you into all the panelists. How should the youth navigate through that?
If I take a stab at that, firstly is I think the youth have demonstrated it in the 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨. I see that there's no leader. Each one is their own leader, right? Each one is doing their part and there's no ego. I don't know what the equation is now, because I've not followed whether there's a mix of who is seated there and whether there's like Dharanat said, whether the form is changed. But that's a lesson I took for corporate, and you can't, because we are used to structures and hierarchy and boss, and you have to have a boss and you have to listen to a boss. And sometimes the boss doesn't know what's happening. So I guess the young people have to rise up and believe on what they think, and believe in on the things and be confident in what you believe in, and talk about it. And if you simplify it, in 𝐸𝐻 I was very young. I was 32 when I joined, and one thing maybe because I didn't want a career and I was from the sports background, I would blatantly just talk and I'll stand up against anybody, and not to offend, but just to explain and believe. If I believe in something, I'll speak about it. The same thing, I mean, I see what they're doing at 𝐼𝐻𝐸𝐴. Why don't we bring it back into a system of wherever you work, if you believe in it and if you have a formation of idea of how you can execute it, talk confidently. No idea is a bad idea. I think more ideas together, we can take bits and pieces and make a great idea. So that confidence, because we have this habit of wanting to be perfect, sound perfect, and think that the boss's ratification is needed. Actually, I sit as a group CEO, I don't know anything. Most of the time I'm listening to the MDs who run the business, and you kind of know which sounds nice and you make decisions, and eventually, so remember, if you don't talk, the boss really is more clueless and is making the worst decisions. So that's what you need to do, is believe, invest in knowledge, and then once you have it, speak with confidence and own it. And like I heard somewhere saying, be the best version, so be that.
I would like to continue that with the rest of the panelists as well. How should, even in corporate world, if they are given that provision to be confident, how do we bring that into the government structure or the public sector also? Because we see a lot of challenges there. Even in the public sector, the hierarchy or the bureaucracy works very strongly in the public sector. Is there a place where the youth can actually step in, where they can actually start making changes? Because for the last couple of months, we have seen a lot of changes happening, and the youth has been very strong, no doubt about that. But I think there are more challenges, but how can we get on into those things and how to change these?
Well, from what I would think is also participation. that in many, we see a trend, we did see earlier a tendency where, people don't want to get involved. They think that is not my problem. So as I said earlier. So I think participation is important, and also I think we have to build a culture where we also respect diversity, and where we know that someone else might have a different idea. So to speak about the people who work closely with me, I have he's about 10 years maybe junior to me. He is a member of the Frontline Socialist Party. I can tell you his name is Nuwan Bopage, who has been in the forefront of all these things. So we differ totally on maybe what the economy should be, or how change should happen. But we tend to respect. I respect that he has a different view, he respects that I have a different view. And very often we work together on issues. So in a similar way, I think we must understand that Sri Lanka is a very diverse country. So we have people of different races, religions, different ideas. And sometimes we can work together. We can work together, and we should not think someone who, so if we start branding he is this, or he belongs to this party, so we can't work with him, that would be wrong. And I think that sort of to work together, and also sometimes you have to compromise. Yeah. Not on, there are certain principles you can't compromise, but how to get things done, you might have to sit down, discuss, and look at the way forward.
Definitely. I think diversity and inclusion has been a very important topic that we have been, in the modern world, we have been talking. So I think that's a really good advice, where we look it with a very open mindset. So I would like to move to Mr. Mahesh Paswal with the same question. How do you think change needs to happen within this young leadership towards this?
First thing, it's our duty to keep this young talent in our country. They have a reason to leave this country. We have to understand that. And we have to think by ourselves, are we giving them the due place to them? I don't think so. And you imagine, very recently, government has taken a decision to increase the retirement age. Who is getting affected? Do you think that all young people will be very happy and stay here till they told them to get retired in 65 years old when they come in? So, as we discuss here, I am 100% for this. We have to be unity in diversity. That is the most important thing. If we can't understand the diversity, value of diversity, and if we are not going to respect that, I don't think as a nation or country or whoever as us, we can go more forward. We have to understand youth won't think the same way that we are thinking. Now we are older and our experiences are different, our exposure is different, but they are in a different world. If we don't respect them, if we don't bring them to this world and give them a chance or opportunity for them to perform, don't expect them to stay in this country, because they don't feel them as citizens of this country. Unfortunately, most of us are not the citizens of this country. We are just permanent, residents or something like that, because we don't think of our country, we don't do our part. If some organization says somebody is doing robbing or something, for example, Pandora papers or something, what are we doing? We just read it and we see that some commissions are appointed and we are happy. That is not the citizen's job, citizen's duty. We have to see what is happening to our money, what is happening in our country, how we give this country intact to the next generation. Unfortunately, we don't give them their due place. If they want to come out with innovative ideas, there is no bank, there is no organization to support them. So they feel like honorable and they go. Because we have to understand this. Until we give them their proper due place, nobody will stay in this country. We have to understand the number one, if we want to keep this young talent, we have to do that. Then they will come back here and they work, because then they know that we respect them, we want their ideas, and we are helping them to come up. That is, those things they have to feel. Our country has a small defect from the very beginning. We are not respecting to the performance. We need people who can perform well. We have to have indicators to judge. We have to go through the performance indicators and understand how these people are performing. If somebody is not performing in one area, definitely he may have performing in some other area. We have to understand that, and we have to keep the young people. We have to allow them to perform. We have to judge them and help them. Unless, I don't think we can have anybody in this country in coming near future.
Yes. So touching on few matters, one is on the talent management side versus having that inclusion culture. I think my view is, I think it's always welcome if we can keep the talent. Young people, they can rebuild it, build the country, and we need the talent. Definitely, we need the talent. But in my view, it's also their personal choice. If they feel that they should explore a better opportunity, I think that opportunity has also to be there, because they can support Sri Lanka by working somewhere else. And that actually happened in Lebanon, because Lebanon has a similar path to Sri Lanka, because they also had a war, and they were also dependent on tourism. They were called the Switzerland in the Middle East. We were called the Switzerland in Asia. And I think out of their 20 million, about 12 million, if I remember right, were the diaspora. So basically during that crisis still, most of the people are sending money through informal markets for the Lebanese people to survive during that crisis. When they went through that 23-hour, 22-hour power cut, that's what actually saved them. So we also lost a lot of good talent because of the unfortunate incidents we had. Because a lot of Tamil people, Tamil law, I don't want to categorize it, but the reality is a lot of people lived in the north and east area, left Sri Lanka, and they are doing quite well in other countries. I saw a Facebook post which was sharing the income stratas in US. So actually the Sri Lankan US citizens are, I think, the third or the fourth, because they have a some system. It doesn't mean that other systems are really perfect and flawless. They are, functioning very smoothly. There are problems everywhere in the world. But when you are in a better environment or a better system, they tend to earn well. And I think that's what that main question everyone says. When you are in Japan or when you are somewhere else, you are even not like throwing any garbage to the street. But when you come to Sri Lanka, you do it. Yes, because there's like a mechanism there which it's not here. And that influences the behavior. So I think it's important for people to have that choice, but it's important that they come back and support back Sri Lanka, because the taxpayers have also contributed quite a lot in education and in healthcare. So it's also important. But at the same time, we also need to understand in that inclusive process and building our economy, now the rules of the game have also changed. Since you spoke about the self-sufficiency, now there was an era that we could have done, we could have produced everything under one roof, but now things have also changed. Like in no country, nothing is produced under one roof. Now for an example, apparel sector, they are the main exporter, also they are the main importer, because they, to become the main exporter, they should be able to import, because otherwise they can't export. They will basically lose the edge. But that's one example. So in that context, the rules have also changed, so we have to adapt to that. And we have to respect each other, and those basic values definitely should come into play, because world has evolved and we are in a more open and a freer society, and we have to respect that. And through that, I think we can move forward. And Sri Lankans have proved multiple times we can do that. I am quite sad that we are still very slow in the process. But I also am hopeful that this will take us to somewhere, because crises also create a lot of opportunities, though it's hard, and I hope this will direct towards the right direction.
Thank you very much, because with the time constraint we have, I wanted to go on a very final question, and I think I wanted to start the question there as well, because I have experience and read that crisis creates a lot of opportunities. So I would like to open this to the panelists. What will be your final advice to the young leaders out there, how to embrace these challenging times so these difficult times will be converted into a better future? I think one of the biggest choices, the frustrations, and also all the chaos that we see even in the fuel queue to all other places, is people are finding it very difficult to embrace this challenging time. But if you change your mindset a little bit to embrace this challenging time so you can navigate through, I would like to open this to the panelists to give a little bit of advice to the young leaders, how to embrace this challenging time and to navigate it through till we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay.
So I will take that just I'll be very brief. I'll give you an example from a friend of mine. He's a cardiologist. He was 1 year senior in school, and he spent many years in Sweden, and now he's practicing here. So he told me daily he comes to the hospital by bicycle. He cycles from his home in Kohuala to the hospital where he is. And so that is just to give you one example of how someone is coping with this.
Yeah.
So in similar ways, I suppose we need to also adjust perhaps our lifestyles, but of course we also have to appreciate, though we say adjust, there are some people how can you adjust if your salary is only 20,000 rupees? How do you adjust? They will have to adjust by compromising very probably on food, the food intake of their family. So that is where I think so I saw someone, a politician had said time to tighten the belts, but how much can you ask people to tighten their belts? So that is also, I think, while we seek adjustment, we also need to really look at the people of this country and see how all of us can support people. I think that on an individual level, but also how communities can get together. And I think, but I agree with Dhananath that this is a time for reset, but it can also be a great opportunity for this country to, if provided that in the next few weeks we get things right. I don't know whether I'm correct about the weeks, but I feel that if we don't get things right in the next 4 to 8 weeks, then we are in for a lot of trouble.
Yes, I would like Ms. Kasturi.
So I think I agree with Salia, but while we reset or we look at a foundation, I think there's opportunity or we have to. We don't have a second chance, I must be honest. I feel we don't have a second chance. We have to make sure we reset the whole system and governance process. That whole systemic change has to come in. And whoever comes to politics, we have to figure out a way of getting the right people in there and getting them accountable. And after that, then it becomes a process and a habit like another country. That whole change has to happen. Third one is we have to be the change we want to see. Even how we interact in social society, what we post, what we don't post, how we even voice an opinion and stand up for what's right. I guess in all this, if we when you take a decision on how you're going to react, you're going to put something in the center. That is the country. Put Sri Lanka and said, if Sri Lanka is good, it's good for Sri Lanka and it's not good for my company or me, I still would do it because it's good for Sri Lanka. Time has gone. We don't have another chance to say like it's good because it's good for this company and we'll have a second chance. There's no second chance. So everybody, whether it's a politician or a citizen or a corporate, has to understand now we only have to think, is it good for Sri Lanka? You do it. It's bad for my company? It's okay. I have to survive it. Figure out a different way of surviving. It's bad for me, I will have to survive it. You cannot go on. The other side of it, look, is you only can control what you can control as individuals. Focus on that. And it's tough, it's easier said than done. When you have so much of external turmoil you see and you're human beings, you get emotional. When you're emotional, the fact of what you control kind of gets blurred. So you take a step back, and as young people, I mean, my sons are in their 20s and they were the most affected emotionally when they stay overseas now at the moment, but they were very emotional, and I'm saying, and they were making rash decisions. I said, first of all, by getting emotional, it's not going to help you to make a decision. Step back and say it and that's not going to help you to do what you can control. So these are small things. It is also evolving as human beings. I guess that's, you all are ahead of time. With maturity, I think we become a bit more philosophical and calmer in thought. You all don't have that luxury. I think you all have to become a bit more evolved before time, because we need that kind of calm mentality to move forward.
Very clearly said, we all of us said, we are living in one of the most difficult times at the moment. But we have to understand, we have to live. As Ronald Reagan said, the future belongs to the brave. We have to understand that. And not only that, we have to understand, as typical Sri Lankans, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going.
So my final thoughts would be on a very personal consumption basis. So I think this also, when we reflect internally, we have to cut down a lot of things that we have used to do. Behavioral wise, we have to change, and it's very difficult. Someone told me, like, when you used to go at business class, it's very difficult to adjust. For economy class, at that point I was thinking, like, how come, it's the same plane, it's just like 2 compartments. But now probably people will realize, like, those who used to go in tuk-tuk or like in their personal vehicle, moving to public transport is a difficult process. I mean, because I think my advice would be, make that change as fast as possible. Because what we generally do is, we try to maintain, we make an extra effort to maintain that same thing. For an example, if I used to go in my personal vehicle, I used to make an extra effort to somehow stay in the queue, get, cut that line and somehow get it done to keep that. But sometimes it's easier for me to move to a public transport or some alternative mode, rather than making the same effort to maintain that style. But it's a difficult process. You have to do a lot of internally also, psychologically you have to cut that down. But I think it's life. I mean, we have to do that. So we have to use public transport, think about on the efficient terms, so that will be the norm. People will adjust over a period of time, but I think if on a personal basis, if you feel this cannot be done, make that change faster, rather than like waiting in a queue or like waiting 3 months to do that move from a personal vehicle to a public transport. Economically it's difficult, like behavioral wise it's difficult, but move that change. And though past is dark, I think future, it's still, we have the power to change it. So let's use that power and change it. It's a slow process, but I think it will be steady. Hopefully things will fall in place. At least that hope will stay us alive. And let's do it, and let's contribute everyone in their own capacity on reforms.
Thank you very much. I think with the little time we had, we tried to make this discussion as fruitful as possible, and I must thank you, the distinguished panelists, for being here and sharing those wonderful ideas and encouraging the youth actually to give a provision and open it, saying there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of things that we can still do as Sri Lankans and the youth of the country. And I must also thank all the youth organizations, the private sector, the government officials, and all who are still fighting and contributing to make sure to bring our country and towards going towards finding solutions. And thank you very much, and over to you, organization committee. I would like to hand over it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we first request our panelists to remain on stage.
𝐻𝐬𝐲, that was a very informative and inspiring panel discussion. Actually, what we can now see, and what I need to tell you is, you can be a Rotaract member, you can be a Leo, you can be an 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐲 member, and you can be an individual who not aligned with any of these organizations. Yet, each one of us have a responsibility to speak up and take actions to make Sri Lanka, I should say, make Sri Lanka great again. Because It's on our hands to take our country to the next level and face this economic crisis and the social issues.
Yes, I think, Ashin, that's a great point. We as the youth, we as the next generation should take this to our hands. I think the past generations have been informing us, making us knowledgeable on what we could do. I think it's time for us to step up as youth and step forward and take the reins and make sure that we abide by and follow the examples that they've set before us. So thank you so much to all our panelists, and we move on to a group photograph. For that, we also would like to invite multiple district president of Leo Multiple District 306, Sri Lanka, to come onto stage, as well as the project chairperson, Leo Lakisha, also to join us on stage, and also the 6 district presidents of the Leo districts to join us on stage, as well as the leaders of other movements who joined with us today also onto the stage. And we would also like to have our chief guest on stage as well. Once again, we request the panelists to stay on stage, as well as the event chairperson rather, and the multiple district president of Leo Multiple District 306, Sri Lanka. So it's time to appreciate. It's time to appreciate and recognize all the speakers, the panelists who joined with us today, to spread their wisdom, and also to our moderator for making sure that the session was very interactive, the right questions are asked, and make sure to get the point across to everyone who has joined us today, both physically and online. So first of all, we have the Group CEO of 𝐅𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨 Holdings, Ms. 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕. President of the Bar Association, President Council, Mrs. Salia Pires. Past Council Chairperson, Lion Mahesh Pascoe, PMJF, MAF, endorsed candidate for the office of International Director, Lions Clubs International, and Chairman and Managing Director at 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨 Engineering Private Limited. And Mr. Dhanath Fernando, Chief Operations Officer and founder of Advocata Institute. So ladies and gentlemen, that was our panelists. And the moderator of the event, Leo Lion 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨, Senior Team Lead, People Operations at Cisco Labs. Thank you so much, everyone. Next up, we have the address by one of the most distinguished guests of the evening, our chief guest. Multiple Council Chairperson-elect, District Governor, Lions Srilal Fernando PMJF, has been a member of the Lions Club of Morato Ratmalana for nearly 3 decades. He was elected as the District Governor of Lions District 306A1 in 2019. Currently, he serves the Lions Multiple District 306 as the Multiple Council Chairperson. Talking about his education and professional qualifications, Lions Srilal is a product of the Mazanoid College, Kandana, and is a qualified mechanical engineer and holds membership in the Institute of Mechanical Incorporated Engineers, UK, and American Society of Heating, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers, USA. He was a director of Elimec Engineers Private Limited and currently works as a consultant engineer. We cordially invite the Multiple Council Chairperson-elect, Lions Srilal Fernando, PMJF.
Thank to the organizers for inviting me as the chief guest. Dear Multiple District President Leo Dilshan Piris, District Leo Presidents, the panelists of today's program, 𝐻𝐸 Limited, Mr. Salia Piris, President's Councillor, President of Bar Association, Past Council Chairman, Lion Mahesh Pasquale, and Mr. Dhananath Fernando, moderator, Mr. 𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐸𝐺𝐕. Leos, Lions, Rotrax, JCs, and ACX, and other participants. At the outset, I wish to mention that the topic we have selected, the voice of youth and empowered future, is very timely subject matter in Sri Lankan perspective. Now today, while the discussion was going on, he mentioned about the war cabinet. But there is a very special thing called war room in the UK. During the war time, they started a thing called war room. I got to know about, of course, I have heard that war room. While I was working for a company in Tata Group where we are doing a project, the project has a specific time limit, and they started a thing called war room. My friends in Sri Lanka asked, what does this mean? You are going for a war room meeting. So I didn't know what that, it was a thing, where I think Sri Lankan cabinet and Sri Lankan politicians also need that, where that is war room is a thing, where a place where we are supposed to meet. We can't come to a conclusion of all the matters. In the war room, Winston Churchill had the war room at that time, 1940s, when the war was going on. They come to the war room, all the generals and all those politicians, or the top politicians and the Queen's representative, everybody is there. They come out with decisions. There are no way of postponing it. I think in the present day situation, our Sri Lankan government need a war room. We have not the cabinet meeting and parliament. They need a war room. There are problems. When they discuss his day-to-day problems, they have to come out with the solution, not be postponing it today. Now you know this 21st Amendment, they are talking, and everybody is talking about going to courts and going to party leaders, going to this thing, that thing. Ultimately, no one knows whether it is coming on. Sometimes it might drag on for another 1 month or 2 months, or don't know, whether 3 months. So I think, as he said, we need a war room. Sri Lankan government need a war room. So when they get into that, they have come out with it. So I know that when I was working at that company, when we started that meeting at 9:30, the lunch is served. Sometimes it went up till 8 o'clock because a lot of problems has to be solved. So we cannot come out with without settling that problem. So like that, I just wanted to say that from the discussion I had it. I don't want to take much of your time. I want to tell you something. By being a Lion for 40 years, almost 35 years, and a youth about 40 years ago, like you all, we had a lot of problems like this. In 1971, I don't know, your parents would have been aware of it. We had when we were in schooling, we had a thing called insurrection, 1971 insurrections. So insurrections were led by some people, and ultimately it ended up in losing around 60,000 to 70,000 youths on rivers and seashores, we could see bodies. So this, which I have seen to our own eyes, the bodies were lying on the seashores and the river banks and rivers. So again in 83, that's about 11 years ago, 11 years after that, we had 83 riots, where the communal riots, and end up in having a 30-year war. I think almost about 100,000 youth were perished due to this situation. Then again, 89, we had again another problem, led by some other party. Ultimately, government or non-government or units or whoever it is, killed around 60,000 to 70,000 youth. So that is in 1989. Now again, 1921, we have a different way of the problem. So that is now it's 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢, we call it. Now the youth want to change the government, change the system. So this time they are using a different tactics, a peaceful protest, peaceful way. But whether we could go on this peaceful protest forever without making a real change. So don't know whether the politicians are taking us for a ride, talking about 21st Amendment, all that. So ultimately it might end up in a civil war again. This is what happened in other countries. Not only, this is not new to Sri Lanka, or to the world. In all the countries in the world, they had some, from one time or the other, the countries have faced revolutions. In recent past, in Tunisia, you know, the corruption was it came to the extent where the people can't tolerate anymore. One small fruit vendor, a young boy, his livelihood, his family livelihood was selling fruit, and he is the sole breadwinner of that family. So the police constable, a woman police constable, continuously harassing him. Every day he was being pushed there, and he was asking money, he was thrown away his cart, all that. It come to a situation where he could not bear up. He burnt himself in front of the police station. It sparked that particular incident sparked the entire country, and the entire youth started protesting against the government. Within 28 days, the president resigned and ran away to the Saudi Arabia or South Asian country. So what happened? So there are no president. Then the prime minister became the president. So similarly like in Sri Lanka. So the prime minister also could not have, because he had a lot of opposition. According to the constitution, they have appointed the speaker as the president. Now it has happened in 2010, 11 or 12, I think 2011. But still country is in a severe mess. Still they could not come out with that mess. So as youth, when you do protest, yes, you do protest. You fight for your rights, that's a thing. But at the same time, don't move with the wind. Just because someone says that one is corrupt, this one is corrupt, this is the way it should be done, don't do that. Because I think we cannot have another misery. Right? I don't know where it will end up, all those people will say, but we do not know. If it can come to a protest against the armed protest against the government, it will be a very worst scenario. This has happened in Tunisia. If you go to the internet, you read about the Tunisian history, and it happened in 2011, right? So think of that, because I tell that, you know, that I just want to tell you something about, in the World Economic Forum, they have found 10 items which is affecting the entire youth in the world. I don't talk about the other things. The last one they took, peer pressure. The peer pressure, which means peer pressure is the influence wielded by people within the same group, same social group. So a person who have a different perspective trying to promote his ideology into you. Don't carry away with that. I'm telling you that because of this 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢. You know, we are very concerned about this 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢. Now what their taglines? Gota, go home. Maina, go home. All 25 parliamentarians should go home. Allow young people to run the country. The politicians ruined the country since independence, 74 years. So is it true? Some statements may be true, some statements are not true at all. I don't find fault with the taglines. I feel some taglines are used to keep the momentum of the Aragale. But you just, for example, you said that politicians have ruined this country for 74 years after independence. Now you take the statistics of Sri Lanka. Yes. Yeah, take the statistics of Sri Lanka. In 1948, we have 6 million people. Today, we have 22 million. An average growth rate of almost closer to 1%, 1.1, 1%. That growth rate is in par with the world developed countries. It's a very good percentage. But because we know that our resources are limited, we can't, like those days, we can't have families with 5, 6 children. So each family has 1 or 2 children. So that growth rate is very in par with the world developed economies. Then how is that we achieved? Because we have a very good education system. That is why our child growth rate, the growth rate of population has come to that level. If it is an illiterate family, they will have 6, 7, 8 children. Now, literate people have only 1 or 2 or 3 maximum, or 4. Now, we have infant mortality rate. Infant mortality rate was 14 to 20 in 1950s. Now, today, out of mortality rate, 14 to 20 deaths per 1,000 people. Now, today, in 2020, we have mortality rate is 3 out of 1,000. So that means our mortality rate has improved. Infant mortality rate has been improved. So children are in their birth, they don't die. But when we used to ask, our parents used to say, in their families, at least 1 or 2 people at the childbirth, they have died, or they have premature birth. So that now it is not happening very much. That is because we have a very good medical system. Our family health system is very good. Now our literacy rate in 1950s, we have only 56%. Today we call it 97%, which is in par with world-based countries. So that means we have a very good education system. Our life expectancy is 1950s, it's about 52 high to 65. So you ask your parents, they will say that. But now today, it has gone to 78%, average living age is 78. So that means we have a very good system of healthcare system. So that means we are having a good lifestyle. But something went wrong somewhere. That is why all this problem. I'll tell you what are the problems what we are facing today. The problem is that we are not in the correct position in GDP terms, where we should have been. Our GDP should have been in a different position than as it today. But we are not in that. Our per capita income is started in 1956, maybe for 48, $300 or $400 per capita income. Now they say it's about 4,000, but we should have been at least $7,000 per year. We are not in that position. So then balance of payment. We have our balance of payment in the our country's balance of payment. The deficit is increasing continuously. There are no percentage-wise to GDP percentage, it has been increasing continuously. So those are the problems what we are facing. And productivity. Our productivity has dropped. I know that, although you are, I myself have been. So if I can say that as a youth, who was a youth and like you all long years ago, now presently we see that our productivity level has gone down very badly. So, and our world competitiveness have gone down. And our duration of higher education, right? So now why these people say everybody wants to go to private universities, why do we want to go to universities outside the Sri Lanka? Why? Because by my son, of course, of your age, he came out with MSc in a university, one of the best universities in the world, at the age of 21 plus. Right? Now he is about 29. Yes. He's holding a very high position in a investment banker in foreign country. So they have been well set in their life. So, but if you take in Sri Lanka, I don't know how of your age, by 27, you are just starting your life. You are just trying to come out from your life. Why is that? Is it the fault of the government? It is not that. It is the fault of yourself and the people who have been guiding you towards that. Because every Sri Lanka, if you take, every other year, there is a strike. Universities are closed down for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, like that. In 1971, we are supposed to sit for A-levels in 1972, but it went up to 71. It went up to 73 because of these riots. So we lost 2 years, right? So 2 years of A-level postponed to 2 years. And the university intake was postponed for 3 years because the accumulated lot was there. So we had to wait to get into the university at least 74, 75. So those are the issues. So as youth, don't go with the wind. So don't take to the peer stress. So peer pressure, not stress, peer pressure. So think yourself, analyze yourself the problem. Just because someone says, when you come to election also, this is happened in Sri Lanka, they say, according to Sri Lanka, although we said that we have so many PhDs, our educational literacy rate is 97%, 98%. When you come to election, those the so-called educated lot also select the worst person in this country. So for example, if you take, when you have well-educated person, I will tell you a simple example. When I attended as a chief guest, Lions chief guest, there was one politician, so coordinating secretary, was in the Users Alliance. That time there was an election going on, I think provincial council election. He just happened to talk to me and said, Governor, in that party we have put this type of people. The other party has put all those qualified people, but they will never win. They will never win. So right, who are voting for them? Not the illiterate people, no, all those educated people also voting for them. This problem is because of that actually. So please think that, because if this is not solved within another 3 or 4 months, the country will have to have a different, country will take to a different level. Because my son I used to talk to him because they are in the investment bank, they know the world affairs well. He says, Tati, Lebanon, still they could not come out from that problem. They managed to topple the government. Even Tunisia, they managed to topple the government in 28 days. But they have not come out with their mess still. So just for the sake of changing the government, don't do that. As youth, you have a right. You have to tell your friends and propagate this idea. Think twice before you do anything. And don't get carry away with the wind, or with the pressure and the views of the others. Think of yourself. You can by yourself analyze things what I said, where we have gone wrong. So now as we come to the main reason is the corruption. Yes, we know. Corruption is not only the top, even to the lowest level, PN is a corrupt. I know there are certain institutions, from one table to the other table, to take the payment, you have to pay money. Otherwise, they will not take that file from this table to the other table. So if you want your payment to be done, so you have to pay that man also money. So we talk about politicians' corruption, but every organizational, institutional employees are, majority are not, I don't say that everybody is corrupt, majority is corrupt. So they scold others, top people, they are corrupt. For top people to be corrupt, make that corruption, who's supporting that? The government officers. Otherwise they can't do, they have their own corruption. If we say that so-and-so is so much, I don't want to mention name, so-and-so has taken, pilfered so many billions of dollars. How can they pilfer without the support of the things? Right? Now you know that unsolicited proposals are the major issue. I don't know, you know what is unsolicited proposal? In the Sri Lankan, major contracts are called civil law, whatever the engineering contracts. Those goes to the billions. What they do is, they come out with a proposal and they come out with the money. They say, I have a proposal to build a highway from A to B. I can find money. So it cost him $5 billion. I will find the money. You pay this with interest, all that. So then it goes to the straight away to the minister as well as to the government officer or secretary or whoever it is. Then they started bribing those fellows and said, okay, I will give this much. So you pass it. Then that fellow says, no, that is not enough, I need the minister also. That fellow also gives a certain amount to the minister. So ultimately, a $5 billion contract will end up in $9 billion. I personally know what had happened. I think you all might not know, because with my own experience, I know what had happened. So $5 billion will end up in $9 billion. But actual cost is about $3 billion. So the project proposal is done, put it to the cabinet, approved, no competitive tenders, no engineers. In project engineering, there is a thing called engineer's cost, where engineers estimate this will cost so much. This project from highway from A to B, according to international standards, this the engineers knows, using all the formulas they have, they say it costs only $3 billion. But ultimately end up in $9 billion. So there the corruption is that. So who has helped that? All the officers. Otherwise they can't have it on their own. So please think that. I just don't want to take much of your time. So the situation has arisen not because of the individual's problem. This is the fault of everybody. I think it is the fault of everybody. So you have to act so that at least we can come out from this mess within a reasonable time limit, where you have a large role to play. With that conclude, I wish all the the council chairman, multiple district chairperson, district president Leo Dilshan, and the road tract and the 𝐼𝐶 representatives here, and all the other lions and Leos. Thank you very much once again. See that we will have a good future in time to come. Thank you.
Of the event today. And thank you so much for those words of advice and making sure that the message is put across to our Leos. So thank you so much, Multiple Council Chairperson-elect, District Governor Lion Srilal Fernando, PMJF. We would like to once again invite on stage our chief guest, along with the district president, multiple district president, Leoline 𝐸𝐿𝐶𝐕, and the event chairperson, Leo Lakisha Pereira, to give away the token of appreciation to our chief guest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now the time has come to extend heartfelt gratitude to all the personalities who rendered their support to make this event of this caliber such as a successful one. We would like to invite the event secretary, Leo Dino Migama, to propose the vote of thanks.
As we conclude today's event, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to deliver the vote of thanks as the secretary of this event, FusionV 2022. FusionV 2022 can be considered as an exclusive attempt of Leos of Sri Lanka with the objective of inspiring the youth of Sri Lanka to thrive by educating them on how to tackle the current economic crisis within the country, and also to bring together the youth in Sri Lanka under one initiative to communicate with responsible leaders in the country. Therefore, this event, FusionV, wouldn't have been successful without the assistance and guidance of many personnel. Thereby, I would like to convey my gratitude to the chief guest of today's discussion, Multiple Council Chairman, of Lions Multiple District 306 Sri Lanka, Alliance Sri Lal Fernando, PMJF. Also, I would like to extend my gratitude to the panelists of today's discussion, President's Council, Mr. 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕, President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Ms. 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕, Group's Chief Executive Officer of 𝐷𝐬𝐲𝐕 Holdings PLC, past Council Chairperson, Lion Mahesh Pack School, PMJF, PMAF, endorsed candidate for the office of International Director for Lions Clubs International, Mr. Dhananath Fernando, Founder and Chief Operations Officer of Advocata Institute, for your valuable presence and for the valuable thoughts that you'll have shared with us. Also, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the Vice Chancellor of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, Major General Milinda Piris, Captain Sidath Samaranayaka, and all other officers for providing all the necessary arrangements to make this event a success. We would like to express our heartiest gratitude to our valued sponsor and well-wisher, past District Governor of the Lions District 306A1, Lion Chandani Vitana, MJF as well. Further, I would like to take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to multiple district chairperson for Leos, past council chairperson Lion 𝐼𝐮𝐬𝐢𝐨𝐕, PMJF. Also, I would like to extend my gratitude to all 6 district governors, Lion leaders, and also the Leo multiple district leaders for their presence and commitment to make this event a success. Further, I would like to extend my gratitude for the valuable presence of Mr. Bhanuka Hathurusinghe, Country President of 𝐼𝐶 Sri Lanka, Mr. 𝐸𝐴𝐷𝐸𝐴𝐻𝑉, District Rotaract Representative, and also Mr. Christopher Vijay Kulasurya, a Deputy National President of Junior Champ International. Last but not least, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the organizing committee of the Fusion Meet 2022 for their commitment and endless efforts rendered throughout this event. This event wouldn't have been successful without the efforts of you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, the event secretary Leo Dinu Migama. So with that, Saumi, we have come to the end of Fusion Week 2022. The voice of youth for an empowered future.
Yes, Sachin. I hope that everyone here today, as well as everyone joined with us online, really agrees with us that this was a fruitful and effective session. And we as youth will take everything to heart and make sure that we act upon it. So thank you so much for everyone who joined with us once again, both physically and online. And we hope that you all have a pleasant evening. We are your hosts today.
I'm Leo Ashin Jayatunga.
And I'm Leo Saumi Vaduage.
Thank you, everyone.